Welcome to another episode of Lauer Power alongside Chad Lauer as well as Dave Tamkus. My name is Chad Evans. Welcome to Lauer Power. Before we get started, we'd like to invite you to go ahead and subscribe to our podcast as we talk about using adversity as motivation. Chad, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. How are you? I'm happy to be back at it for another episode.
I think I'm pretty good. Davey boy, how you doing over there?
I'm doing good too. Happy to be back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're all having a good time. This is going to be a great episode, and I can't wait to dive in.
So the podcast is about using adversity as motivation, and last episode was Why Not Shamokin, and
opened up a big old can of worms.
It did, and I'll tell you what, that's adversity, right? The city is the poorest city in the state, and we're trying to say use that adversity as motivation. So it fits perfectly within the theme of our podcast. And we've had such an outpouring. I mean, I've had business owners in town like Mike McLaughlin who approached Dave and
He's
said,
such a
hey,
good dude.
Yeah, hey, I want to help.
Yeah.
You know, I've had tons of people. Derek Chicatano came up to me at a soccer game the other day, wants to help. Every person I've run into since says, how can I help? And that's the sign of a great town and a great culture, and that's what we have in the town of Shamokin.
It's certainly a good start. Certainly a good start, and we're on to something. Is this a movement? Can we start a movement?
I think we're starting a movement.
We're going to start a movement.
Today our guest is Kurt Mosser, which we'll get to him in a second. But Chad, before that happens, I need you to give me an update on the train.
Oh, the train to Disney World.
Yeah, tell me about that experience.
A lot of people are asking about the train. I will say this. My wife graded the trip a little bit higher than I did. My wife gave it an A. Okay?
Okay.
I did not give it an A, but I knew that going in. Regardless, the train ride was the auto train.
Okay.
Okay, because you take the van, you put the van on the train, and then the train takes you down to Florida, which is a 17-hour commute. We drive 3 hours to Lawton, Virginia to get on the train with 3 kids, twin 8-year-olds and a 4-year-old boy. Okay. The train was 3 hours late. Never happens before. That's what they say. Never happens. This is the first time this train's ever been late. I guess there was some kind of accident somewhere that was blocking a railroad. I don't know. So we stayed in the train station. This is day one. Stayed in the train station for 4.5 hours. And then boarded the train, had our flat iron steak, went to bed. And the train, I don't give it 2 thumbs up. It was kind of like sleeping in my truck bed and you were driving my truck. It's kind of how that went.
All right.
But look, this podcast isn't going to be nearly long enough for me to tell you all the stories there. Bits and pieces at a time.
All right. Just was checking on the train. I'll give you guys an update. So we've officially purchased 2 billboards.
Congratulations. We got 2 billboards coming our way. How about that?
On Route 61, and Dave is going to design those billboards. So listen, if any listeners have any ideas for slogan lines, shoot us a message on Facebook or Instagram or something like that. Please on YouTube. Dave's going to create them, and you guys will see them soon. We've also been offered a few other locations that might be coming your way soon as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I think just injecting some positivity into the city of Shamokin is going to go a long way with Why Not Shamokin?
Yeah.
And whynotshamokin.com. That's going to be developed shortly.
You might see a website as well called whynotshamokin.com. So we're creating great momentum here. Dave, how have you been, man? You've been in the news recently. So
I'm doing great.
Sound off.
Yeah, I was in Sound Off this past week, and it was everything I hoped it would be and more.
So Dave's ruffled some feathers in Shamokin, but that's what we're doing, right?
Come on, ruffling
I just told a
feathers.
story, and yeah, I mean, you can buy my book on Amazon and learn more about the story of the Shamokin Head.
So give us a little plug. What's the story of the Shamokin Head, Dave, and why are you so passionate about it?
It's just a story that I heard growing up. A wild story about a human head that was on display in town that people would come see. And I always thought that, my grandparents and my parents were full of mud when they would tell me, and I found out that it was real. A man was murdered at the early 1900s. They found his body, no head. Then they found the head, and they embalmed it and put it on display to help hopefully identify the person, and it never happened.
They didn't have Facebook back then to put the head on for everybody to comment. They didn't have any community pages back then. They just had to get the head and put it in front of people's faces to be like, do you know who this is?
Okay.
So what we found was, I knew of this story. A friend of mine made a short film, a fictionalized movie that you can see on YouTube called The Head. And then I ended up illustrating a book that rhymes based on the history of the story. And now some other people who have some firsthand information have been coming out of the woodwork. And there's actually a short film in production about one of the stories of what happened to the head after it disappeared from the museum briefly before it was buried.
It's funny. In all seriousness, you're getting a lot of pushback for this. Not a lot. There's always just the one or two negative people, mostly positive. But this is how like all stories have been written for all time, right? There's like this mystery of the past, or some story that their grandparents told them. But that's all you're doing, right? You're using your creative mind to tell a story. So I'm proud that you're just staying the course and doing what you're doing, Dave.
I always wanted to illustrate a book, and I thought, what better story than this one?
Awesome. Well, listen,
It's a great story.
I mean,
I love it.
Fabulous story.
It's weird.
And it's a really good book too.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So check that out. Guys, I'm drinking my IV coffee here.
We know.
From, Carrie and Eric Boyer. I stopped in this morning.
Delicious.
Got it. Super good. It feels like you're in a different place there in Sunbury. If you get a chance, stop into IV Coffee and check it out. So, Dave, you got a little product here?
Placement. There you go.
Okay, that's great.
Available on Amazon.
That looks fabulous.
The mystery of the ShamokinHead.com.
There you go. So our guest today, Chad, is Kurt Mosser.
I got him walking in the back. That's mine. That's in my prop shelf. All right. Sorry, Chad. I started to interrupt you.
No, don't. You're good, man.
All right.
I love it.
What do we got today, Chad? Tell everybody.
So our guest is Kurt Mosser. So listen, Kurt was the 107th District State House Representative for about a little over a decade here. He's the owner and operator of the Wayside Inn, which most people in the Cole region, I think, are aware of. He also has recently started a company called KAM Strategies, where he's going to help folks get funding, which is his expertise. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kurt here before we introduce him, because I came across an article in the Daily Item with somebody who ran against him who just praised Kurt for his work. He helped provide a $3,000 state grant to all home days organizers in Ralpho Community Park in 2020, a $100,000 state grant through the PHMC Assist a Restoration Project for the courthouse. He voted for Bill 1108, which provided Northumberland and surrounding counties nearly $12 million in funding for the Small Business Assistance Program, including nursing homes, long-term care, personal care, food assistance, volunteer fire companies, emergency medical service companies, as well as reenacting the PA Long-Term Care Council with the Department of Aging, providing crucial services here. We have an aging population here in the Cole region. He also helped award $600,000 to raise the dilapidated structure of the Schroyer factory building in 2018. And he's done so much. He's been part of the $3 million in funds that was raised for Shamokin through the state's redevelopment assistance capital program. So he's really been involved and doing his part as much as he can in getting money to the region. And we're so happy to have him as a guest. So welcome, Kurt Mosser. We really wanted to introduce Kurt to everybody because, we had our last episode, which just got rave reviews. I've had people coming up to me everywhere about, wanting to help and wanting to participate in our mission of, why not Shamokin, and trying to give back to the Cole region town that, really built them. So in my meetings with Kurt recently, he's like, hey, I'd love to come talk about it. So Kurt, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Thanks. Looking forward to it. Listen to all your podcasts, and you're doing great work.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So Kurt, you've done so much. I was actually reading an article, recently about your career, and it was a lengthy career and a lot of successes. But really, we would love for you to tell us your story about how you became a state rep, all the way back from when you started your entrepreneurial career, because I think it'd be really cool. I think people see the end game, but I don't think they see the grind, that it took, and the hours that you've put in as a restaurant and bar owner yourself, and kind of how that process takes place. So can you kind of take us back through that journey?
Sure. I mean, many people in that region are familiar with our name. We've been there a long, long time. The very early 70s when we started the farm market, my family started the farm market. That was just to, from our farm in the Macantongo Valley, Pitman, to get our farm products out to the market. We started there in the early 70s, and then when seemed like whenever one of the boys would graduate high school, my dad would say, well, it's time to expand, and we bought the restaurant complex, which used to be Almonds, in 1981, and been there ever since. And then in 1988, we bought the Wayside. And my dad was a visionary, and pushed us kids. There's nothing quite motivates you than your dad putting the house on the line so you can purchase the business, and that will make you work 70, 80-hour weeks to make sure you don't screw up and not make the payments. So we worked hard, and we've built a brand there. We built a solid reputation, I think, and been in business, and we've been blessed with great customers and great employees throughout all those years. How did I get into politics? Was also related to the business. One day I'm sitting there going through my mail, and I got the county tax bill, and it had gone up considerably. The property taxes were crazy, and I thought, well, it really pissed me off. And I thought, well, I can do one of a couple things: just bitch and like everybody else would do, and end up writing the check, or do something about it. And I decided to get involved and ran for county commissioner. And funny story, I told my dad, and he wasn't exactly high on the idea, but we were successful, and ended up certainly not me alone. There was a lot of folks involved, but ended up lowering the taxes in Northumberland County. And how did I get to state rep was sort of the one that was currently serving at the time, retired, and they came to me and said, would you do this? And I looked at it as a great opportunity that I could do more than I could as county commissioner to help the region.
That's an awesome story. And, I guess for those of us who've never been able to kind of be involved at that level, can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a member, and like, what do these meetings look like? I think there's this vision, especially today's world, where we're all so divided that like there's this constant battle, and I'm assuming that's not the case, right? You guys work together to try to get things done, right? Can you tell the audience like what those meetings look like, what a day looks like in that world?
It's a whole lot different than being county commissioner. County commissioner, I always said, was the easiest job in the world. You needed one other guy to agree with you. So you just needed 2 votes. There in Harrisburg, you need a lot more votes, and you need a lot more. I just took it as it's pretty simple. The route that I took, it was about building relationships and going in there, and you can go in there and be a ramrod and just want to throw bombs, and you will accomplish absolutely nothing. You will build a brand for yourself. But if you're truly looking at accomplishing something, being a bomb thrower isn't you're not going to bring anything back to the region. You're not going to make your region any better. It's just about building relationships. And I enjoyed it. The meetings were a little bit intimidating at first, and you get over that pretty quickly. You just jump in. But it's what you make out. I mean, it's what you put into it, what you get out of it, really.
No, yeah, and that totally makes sense. As far as your greatest accomplishment in that role, what do you think that would be? What would you consider your greatest accomplishment?
I don't know that I can single out one thing. Certainly we did a lot in Shamokin, even though some people will choose not to see it. But I made it a focus to look at Shamokin when I went in there. And I was determined to prove some of the naysayers wrong, that, the best days are behind us, that nothing good is going to happen here. So I'm proud of the things that we got done there. We certainly left it a lot better than we found it. That's certainly one of my I think, better accomplishments in the House.
And that's kind of why we wanted to have you on, right? So as I'm reading here, it shows that you were awarded $600,000. You could correct me if these numbers are wrong, but you helped through legislative efforts award Shamokin with $600,000 to raise the Schroyer factory building. Is that number about correct?
Might have been ended up a little bit more than that, but that was a whole city block.
That's crazy.
It was crazy, right? And they've been working on getting that thing down forever. People were in there, obviously everything was stripped out of the thing, but it was a potential real safety hazard up in that Bunker Hill neighborhood, and we finally got that down.
So I also see that you helped raise $3 million through the state's redevelopment assistance capital program. These are big numbers, right? And it's funny because in our last episode, I think we were talking about private investment and things like that. And, we all have these ideas. And it's funny, the leadership topic of the podcast is actually how to become a visionary and have a vision and lead people to a vision. So, in your opinion, you've seen a lot of money given to the city. Like, what else can we do to try to get it back on track? You've been in leadership positions for a really long time, and I'm sure you've seen through the state other areas that have been revitalized. Like, in your opinion, where do we start?
Well, I think the ongoing efforts have to continue with the blight. I think at some point you have to pivot and say the ones that we're worried about are the health and safety of the citizens first and foremost. And then you're going to look at downtown business districts, and you're going to look at gateways, people that are traveling through Shamokin, that you want to clean up those gateways, that it makes it a more attractive place to want to just pop in and see what's going on here. So that has to continue, and I think that can continue. Certainly we have some, I think Linda Schlegel-Culver is the senator. She's committed to continuing this effort. When I was there, and a lot of it didn't even get reported, I would get $500,000, $600,000 here and there, would appropriate it to the Northumberland County Housing Authority, and they're the ones who really did the work and got these properties down. I think so that has to continue. But a lot of the things that you had touched upon in another podcast were like the tourism aspect is big, right? And you have to play off of that. I think there's other aspects that you can look at that might play a role. I think the rare earth elements has a real potential to play a role in Shamokin's comeback. But that's probably a couple years down the road till we learn how we can get them best extracted from our coal fields. But that's hanging out there, right? And right now, anybody can commute and work. Nobody has to commute to work anymore, really. If they want to work remotely, they can. And why not Shamokin? I mean, it's a great town. Certainly a lower cost of living than if you were in one of the big cities like you used to have to go to get your job. Why not live in Shamokin? Why not take advantage of a much cheaper cost of living and stay there? I think you build upon those things. I think you add upon not just our existing tourism component that we have going on with Knoebels, with the state shoot, with the Anthracite Outdoor Adventure Area, with the mountain biking that is really blowing up over in the Weiser State Forest. You have all of these things that we naturally have going on right now that, again, a lot of people don't want to acknowledge. They'd rather be the naysayers. But you build upon that. We have a great auditorium in the old Shamokin High School, what everybody refers to now as the Career Center. It's a beautiful auditorium that will blow away the Mock Chunk Opera House. Much bigger. Oh, yeah. Much bigger seats. You could put big name acts in that building, and that's going to bring a lot of people. In order to get the hotel, you have to have people in the wintertime, And that, I think, would drive those numbers in the wintertime. So there's a whole lot of things that I think that are just out there that we certainly should capitalize on.
Can you elaborate on the rare earth elements comment, please?
Right now, like your phone is made up of these, and trust me, I'm far from a scientist. I'm just a dumb pig farmer from Pitman. But there's these elements that are used to manufacture everything in electronics,
Yep.
and they're all mined, not all, but vast majority of the minerals that are used for the production of these electronics are mined in China. And we really want to rely on, we all see what was happening with China and the talks about China and our strained relationships with them, that we really want to count on them to manufacture these things where we have these rare earth elements. They're finding them in the coal refuse piles, in the strippings, in the where the mines had already been, where the coal has already been taken out. They're finding these there. Now, I think there's technology that has to be developed yet to get them, to be able to mine them. And but there's been studies shown that they're here, right? And how can we use that to our benefit?
That's fascinating to me. Like that would be like a breakthrough, right? Good stuff. So you now have KAM Strategies, right? That's what you're doing now. You own that business, and through KAM Strategies, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now?
So KAM Strategies is a government relations lobbying procurement firm that I started. I still wanted to be able to be helpful to our region, and I thought I still wanted to be doing something that I could play a positive role. So what I do is I have clients that I help navigate the government, right? I mean, everybody wants to have their issue heard in Harrisburg and Washington. It's my job to get my clients' issues heard, and it's through those. Half the time I was in Harrisburg, I was in a leadership position. I was elected by my peers to be in leadership. So I've made some great relationships down there, and I think that I can use those relationships to help my clients, help still bring money back to the region through the budget process. And so that's basically what it is. If you're a company that wants to have their issue heard or needs something that they really don't like that's going to hurt their business, I'm going down to Harrisburg and talking to the people that I've met throughout all these years and telling them why this is good or why this is bad.
That's pretty cool. And I guess, from a funding perspective, like we've talked a lot about it, we know there's a massive investment needed. Like Chad actually just threw out the number 50 million last podcast. And, I kind of chuckled, right? Because I'm like, I really don't know, right? But, what kind of funding, and I don't need these to be exact, Kurt, but like, are there funding opportunities for private businesses that maybe are just there and we need to really fight to get those funds to come back to our region? Or like, can you elaborate a little bit about where one would start to try to investigate that?
Well, I think it's a process, right? I mean, I 50 million is not going to cut it. I had Governor Wolf up a number of years ago, and people yelled at me, "Oh, he's a Democrat. Why are you doing that?" Well, he's our governor at that time, and I wanted them to see what we were facing, and it helped me throughout the budget processes thereafter, getting funding for my the fight against blight. I told the governor then, we need $1 billion. Yep. If we truly want to get rid of all the blight, we need, not just in Shamokin, but the coal region, we needed $1 billion. I knew I wasn't going to get it, but I wanted to get his attention that this is a true ongoing problem that we needed help with. But you have the federal government also. I have a great working relationship with Dan Muser. He's also bringing, I wasn't even thinking about this when I was getting ready for the show, but I want to say it was quite a few $1 million he's bringing to redo the Shamokin streetscape downtown.
Awesome.
Which should be happening here very shortly. But there are funding streams out there for a whole lot of things. I mean, some of the things that we got for that hotel project, people scream, the people that they're just negative, and I'm okay. I mean, just keep bringing it. Well, that just sort of motivates me. But the ones that we got for the hotel aren't even. I mean, that can't even be accessed until the hotel's built, and it's just sort of like a reimbursement to help with that development. But it's not something that we're giving somebody $3 million and here you go. It's no, you've proved that you have created this amount of jobs. You've put in this amount of money in, and we will reimburse you 50% of the project. So those are the types of, there's a whole lot of grants out there. There's a whole lot of different funding streams, the budget process itself, where you can bring money back to the region. I was, again, as being a leadership post in the House and having Senator Gordner at that time as a leadership post in the Senate was very helpful to the region. I can't deny that I was able to probably bring more home than most of the rank and file members because of that leadership position. But there's a whole lot of different funding streams that are out there that people can access. But it takes private investment also. It's not just going to be government coming in here and doing it. But government, when you're looking at grants too, also look at, can you pull this off, right? So why did that money to go through the Northumberland County Housing Authority to bring down those houses? Because they could do it. And they've done it over and over and over again. So they have a proven track record. So you're much more likely to get funded if you have that track record that you can accomplish those projects.
Yeah, and you're getting me excited right now because, through KAM Strategies, is that something you're going to offer, like helping people find funding, or is that not so? I want to clarify that for people listening.
Absolutely. So there's, everybody's looking for their piece to try to help their town, their water authority, their housing authority, and they have a project that's very important to them. Well, sure, you go in there and you sell them. You sell the people in appropriations. You sell the rest of the senators and the representatives and the governor's office on why this is so important and should be included in either a grant package or a appropriations through the budget.
And would you also help private businesses with that?
Sure. Okay. There's RCAPs out there that are, that are available to private businesses. There's certain thresholds you have to meet. You have to create X amount of jobs. Yep. You have to do such an investment. It's got to be over a certain amount of a project, and it's got to prove beneficial to the region that you're in. But absolutely, that's what we do.
So anybody listening, right, from the WhyNotShamokin.com episode to me sitting down with Kurt, I think there's a reason why. Right, I get all fired up over this stuff, right? So we're sitting here, we're throwing out numbers. 3 entrepreneurs. He's done it in the obviously private and the public sector. He's right there, owns Wayside, and his family is pretty much has been in business along Route 61 forever. And he's here today saying he can help us strategize to go get funds to bring back this town that we love. Right?
I just can. I want to help you. I mean, that's been a focus of mine since the entire time I've been in politics, was to prove people wrong that this can get done, right? And we can make it better.
And I love how honest you are. We're in a really and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I have to just ask it, right? We're in a really divided time, but we're still the best country in the world, right? So the way you talked about bringing the governor here to show him in such a professional manner, to me, makes me respect you that much more. What do you say to people who have been fighting at the dinner table over these topics? I want somebody who's lived it and been there and been elected. You don't want that. I almost can guarantee I already know you. You want us all to work together to use what we can to make the world a better place. So what do you say to those people, Kurt?
I think the biggest problem we have is we don't have enough people voting in the primaries. It's truly the biggest problem we have. Because it's the far left and it's the far right that vote for your primary, a candidate, and it's proven to be a problem. If anybody thinks that it's all the Democrats that have all the bad ideas or all the Republicans that have all the bad ideas, you're part of the problem. If you can't see that there are good people on both sides of the aisle, that's part of the problem. And that's what's divided us. That's what's caused this problem. We need a lot more people to vote in the primaries so that we can select, many more people that are down in Harrisburg and down in Washington are left of center or right of center, but they're not far right, far left, right? They're not the MAGAs, right? The far crazy left. They're left of center or they're right of center. Sometimes, they swing a little bit more or less, but we need people to get involved. We need people to realize how important the primary is, just as important as the general election is. And I think we need to put a push on for that.
What a great answer. I mean, literally, that's just a fabulous answer. And I think most rational people agree with you. Now, when we talk about local government, like in the town of Shamokin or other towns, I think that's another problem I've seen. I've looked at these voting numbers, and it's a small number of people that vote leadership of these coal towns. Like, how do we get people to buy in, to actually do some research and want to have some skin in the game of who's making decisions for those towns?
I think it's boot leather. When I first ran for the House, I knocked on, I think, 9,000 doors the first time I ran. It takes work, and it's banging on doors and getting people educated that this is more important than anything, and know who you're voting for, right? I had a candidate who was totally against home rule, came to me and said, how about you just pass this at the state? Just pass this law, which will do exactly what home rule did. You just pass it at the state. I said, wait a minute, so that you can say, wait, I didn't do this, he did. No, I'm not interested in that. Why don't you just do what you're supposed to do and not lie to the people? So it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take education and more. And those people who will get educated have to pass that along and tell your friends and neighbors. But it's about getting to know your candidates better than what you've gotten to know them in the past, a whole lot more.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think there's an educational piece to it. And it's funny, as a dumb sales guy myself, here we are again. My saying on this podcast has been, business is sales, sales is business. Well, Kurt had to knock, what did you say, 9,000 doors?
First time around.
He's selling himself, right? So you can't learn how to sell. Like, selling is sales experience and sales training can help you in any aspect of your life, any career, whether it's politics. We've had a coach on that had to sell, entrepreneurs that have to sell. Chad and Dave and I were talking this morning about how to sell. So,
you get thrown off the porch, right? I mean, I've got thrown off a number of porches.
Yeah.
And I knocked on the neighbors.
Yeah.
You got to keep on. You just got to keep going down the street.
Yeah.
Because people have to get educated.
I agree, and it's awesome that you were knocking doors and pounding the pavements. I mean, that's probably why you were successful. Anything else, Chad or Dave, that I
got something to say. I got a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead, Chad.
Oh, this scares me.
All right, you're all right. We'll be okay. So a lot of people, when they talk about Shamokin and Coal Township, they talk about people that are not from here. Okay? They talk about the people from Philly, from New Jersey, and how back in the day, the whole story was they saw a billboard, free housing, cheap housing, low-income housing in the coal region. Let me ask you a question, Kurt. Has HUD housing, has that helped or hurt the coal region? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of local people who are taking advantage of some of the programs too. So to speak to that, I'm not that far in the weeds, but I'm telling you that I've met a lot of great people who are not from our area, right? That are in our area now and contributing a lot, and contributing more than a lot of these people who are complaining about the people from out of the area, right? They're coming in here, they're getting involved. They're running for city council. They're doing this. They're doing that. They're running youth basketball leagues. They're running. One fella has like an anime studio or something like that, that is giving back to the children. All the while, I've always found that the complainers and the naysayers are the ones who do nothing to change it, and you just got to tune them out. You really do. You just have to tune them out. Are there bad elements? Sure, there are. But there are bad elements everywhere.
Well, that's exactly right. That whole cliche is like, well, only in Shamokin. Right, you hear that all the time. Well, only in Shamokin. Well, I beg to differ. Manhattan is pretty bad, and just down the street is Broadway. So, I mean, good things are possible in
I came out of the Capitol, right in front of the Capitol, came down those big long steps that you saw.
Yeah.
And there were 40 ATVs going up riding wheelies right in front of the Capitol. So it's not just, it's happening everywhere, right? And our ATVs who are coming from out of the area, they're the last ones who want to do anything wrong, so they don't screw up that they can ride into Shamokin. It's the locals who are doing a lot of the things that are making some of the residents mad, right? But pay attention to what's going on with the people who are from out of town. They're following the rules of the road because they don't want to screw it up.
I also want to ask about, you mentioned earlier about how we should clean up the gateways coming into the city of Shamokin. So what do we need to do to make things more attractive?
So I think there's some things going on. I mean, we finally got a hold of that old post office, right?
Any plans with that? Did they talk about?
They're talking about it, but they need funding, right?
Yeah.
So that's always the big thing. They want to do an event center there, but what a beautiful old building, right?
Yeah.
To have that, first of all, sitting as long as it did for decade upon decade upon decade, just deteriorating, and going from owner to owner to owner, and nothing being done. Finally, we got it in the hands of some folks that we think can get the funding to get that cleaned up. Mm-hmm. Now we got something right next door that probably needs to be cleaned up again. But it's the old saying: you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? And you just got to be persistent. You got to tune out the naysayers. Biggest thing I found in government and being successful is you stop worrying about who gets credit. If you stop worrying about who gets credit, there's going to be a whole lot more successes coming your way.
Right.
Just don't worry about it. If you get patted on the back or if you get credit for doing it, as long as it gets done, right? So that's one of the bigger things. But you just got to piece at a time. And those successes, I truly believe, snowball. Success breeds success, right? If somebody sees the neighbor putting the siding on their house, they're more likely to be able to put siding on their house or fix their porch or whatever. Success breeds success. So people before COVID, it was such a shame that COVID hit and slowed us down a little bit. But we had such a snowball going where things were happening, right? We need to just get that momentum back again, and things will happen. And I truly, truly believe that.
I have another question, then I'll let you go, and then I'm going to pass it off to Dave. But say Governor Wolf said, "Okay, here's your $1 billion. Here's your $1 billion, Kurt. Let it rip." What would you do first?
Talk to the Blight Task Force in Shamokin. They really have their hands around it. Know which ones are the biggest problems. Which ones you got to prioritize them.
Start knocking things down. Or
if it's a real gem and it brings some history to the town, how do we save it? Too bad we didn't have that kind of foresight when the Vicky was there yet. Yeah. That we could have maybe possibly saved and renovated the Victoria Theater. But yeah, Governor Wolf won't be doing it, but maybe Governor Shapiro might come to me now and say that. But it's just, again, it would be one bite at a time. But I would go to the government task force, the Blight Task Force, because they've really dove into it. Mike McLaughlin has headed that up, and prioritize, put a list down, and let's get to work.
It's almost too easy, Chad.
Well, I think we're going to be spending a little more time with Kurt here. So.
It's not exactly easy. Let's put it that way.
No, I think it would. Before I pass to Dave, I got to tell you guys, I lived in Philadelphia and in Allentown for 16 years. People come from all over the world to those cities, and that's what makes them so cool, right? I can tell you story after story after story of business owner that I helped that immigrated here and works their tail off. I'll name them right now. Manuel Junkel out of Downingtown, Pennsylvania, came here from Ecuador. He owns Manny Septic Services. He came to me. He didn't have a truck. You've done a video for him.
He's a good guy.
You met him. He has like 5 trucks. If your septic's clogged or you need something snaked, Manny's there doing it, right? You did another video for HD Paving. Orlando, Canales, right? He came here from El Salvador. He's the biggest paver in Souderton and gives people tons and tons of jobs, right? I can give you entrepreneur after entrepreneur after entrepreneur who came to the greatest country on earth, maybe didn't have a college degree, but just wanted a better life, and they're having it here now, and they're contributing to our society because they just want to come here and work, right? If you're born here and you've had that opportunity and you're not working, you are the problem. And I say that adamantly because I will show you tons of people who weren't born here who are killing themselves just to feed their family. And by the way, those two guys in particular, one of them offered to buy me a BMW because I helped him grow his business. They send a lot of their money back to their family. Right? Because that's what matters to them. So I think that we need to come together, as Kurt said. So that's my little rant for the day. Dave, what questions do you have?
Sorry, go ahead. Just back to that, to the BMW.
Yes.
Did
I didn't take it.
Could I? Is he still looking at giving that away?
We'll get them on the podcast, right? We'll get them on and we'll ask them for the BMW.
That sounds fantastic. Dave, what do you want to chime in on?
I think the biggest thing that Kurt said was all the way back at the beginning. And my question would be about that. You got your tax bill in the mail and you said, I could either bitch about it or I could do something. So how do you motivate more folks around here to not bitch about something and take action to do something?
Well, the people who bitch to me, that's one of the first questions I ask them. What have you done about it? Like, come to me, what have you done besides bitch to me? And that's probably where I'd start. But it's you either have. I think you either also have that motivation to do something, or you don't have that motivation to do something. But there's a lot of great people that need to get involved, and politics isn't that bad. I mean, it's what you make out of it, right? It's about it's what you put into it, what you make out of it. But I would. Far more people need to get involved, whether that's just going to the city council meeting, asking questions, getting to know your mayor, getting to know your council, getting to know your state representative or state senator or your congressman, whoever. Just get involved, right? Get to know them, and then maybe you'll have a spark there to throw your hat in the ring and see what kind of change you can make.
I mean, the other thing too, and it just came to me as Chad was talking, is how do you advertise to those, or how can you advertise to those type of folks that Chad mentioned to make Shamokin appealing to them, for them to come and start their business? I mean, Chad mentioned, about the HUD stuff, which I've heard about for years, growing up in Shamokin, but where's the market to, or how do you market to the folks to come and start a business and make sure Shamokin is the right place? I mean, do you start doing that now, or do you have to do all that other stuff first where, fixing up the gateway and the blighted buildings? I mean, I think probably both at the same time.
I think it's a time thing. I think success breeds success. So entrepreneurs are seeing what's going on, right? So when that snowball was really rolling pre-COVID, Chad came to me one day and said, there's people in Lewisburg talking about the things that are going on in Shamokin. Now, Lewisburg's like a pretty well-to-do town. Mm-hmm. They're talking about what's going on in Shamokin. So everybody from the region will see those successes happening. If you're an entrepreneur who has the ability to scale his operation, or maybe want to move to a more a less costly location, you're going to see that things are happening. And hey, I want to be a part of this, right? I want to be a part of this revitalization and get it on the ground floor. I think you'll see that with the entrepreneurs that they certainly pay attention. If you're successful, you're paying attention to what's going on around you.
So I know we're up against it here, but I have two more questions because as a business owner, right, we always get that tax bill and we're like floored, right? We're like, wait, I'm creating jobs, I'm doing this, et cetera, which is probably why you were so mad. But at the same time, when we talk about the city of Shamokin and not raising property taxes for such a long time, like what do we do there too? And what might be a reason? Is that a myth, or like what might be a reason to not raise the property taxes in town? Like it's been like 3 decades from what I understand.
When you're talking about Shamokin in general, that whole home rule was blown out of proportion because it's not talking about raising taxes.
Okay.
It's talking about keeping taxes exactly where they were. I mean, there are times where government has to raise taxes. It's just, I mean, their costs go up like my costs go up at the business, right? So at times, right now, I mean, labor has gone through the roof. That same thing is happening in government, where if we want to keep good employees in government, you're going to have to pay them more and keep in line with the private sector. So there are times where taxes may have to go up. I would much rather see grow the economy to bring more taxes in. And I think that's what you'll see in Shamokin, where every building that has been fixed up, like a Kathy Bitovich goes in, her thanks is doubling her tax bill because she put so much money into these buildings. That's where you're going to see Shamokin come out of it. Once, you know, the new hotel comes online, you're going to see that added to the tax roll. When that new brew pub comes online, that's going to be added to the tax rolls. So you're going to be able to keep your taxes in line just by expanding the economy, not so much raising taxes on individual people, just expand that tax base.
I like that answer. Okay, the last question for me, because I know we're going longer than I thought, but this is such a good podcast. So population is a major risk. I was reading actually an article a couple weeks ago that I think it was in 1970, there were 88,000 people in Shamokin and Cole Township, and I believe the latest census showed 8,800 or maybe like 9,000. So, I mean, when we think about this, like generally we need to just increase the population too. So how do you go about doing that?
I think that goes right back to success breeds success. So when you start bringing in these entrepreneurs who are going to need employees, and I think that also brings up the property values. I think people will want to be here because it is, the right people will want to be here because it is a lower cost of living, right? And they're going to come in here and they're going to have some great opportunities to come in, invest in the community, invest in a home that they got a lot cheaper than they could in Allentown or Philadelphia, and truly invest and be where there's so many people want to live in town. Now me, I grew up in Pitman, and I never wanted to be in the middle of the city. But there are people who do that, who want to walk everywhere they go, and I think there's great opportunities to get the right people to come in here, who follow the entrepreneurs that want to have a lower cost of living and can put, and there's examples of that now, right? There's an example of a fellow who I saw online that bought a mansion on Sunbury Street, right? And put some money into it and saved this, first of all, saved this old mansion, but fixed it up and is contributing. Right. Remotely, I think, is how he's.
Yeah, he works remotely. I read that too. Yeah. And
but there's opportunities like that all over, and I think again that his success story will spread to someone else, and they'll say, "Oh, I think I'll go join him."
Yep.
That in turn will drive up property costs. It will stop some of the less desirables from wanting to locate here, right? Those people who are doing the bad things, they don't want things going on around them. They want to be able to lurk in the shadows. We need to shine some sunshine in there and make less shadows.
Yeah, and we're doing that right here. 3 entrepreneurs are starting it. You're obviously contributing, but like I picture, have you guys heard of WeWork?
WeWork.
Have you heard of WeWork? WeWork was this massive company that was just a shared office space, similar to like what you have here at 8 Days a Week. But like entrepreneur after entrepreneur who's working from home just wanted to go somewhere, and it just took off, you know. I picture like an entrepreneurial hub in town. So, Kurt, can you help us build a sports complex?
Sure I can.
He's not afraid to ask for $1 billion, so, you know, maybe that's where we go. But no, listen, man, I really appreciate having you. I don't have anything else. Chad, do you?
No, I don't. Kurt, we appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Thanks.
Thanks, Kurt.
What a great episode with Kurt Mosser, Chad, and Dave. What are your thoughts?
I've known Kurt for a long time. My daddy used to take me down to the Wayside when I was 8 years old, and I'd have a Debbie dog down at the Wayside. Debbie was the bartender there, and she made me hot dogs, and I would have ginger ale. ginger ale and hot dogs. And that's when I first met Kurt. And when I turned 21, alongside my dad, Kurt bought me my first beer at the age of 21. I've known Kurt for a long, long time, and I think he's done some amazing things in the area, specifically for the coal region, and I'm happy to know the guy.
Yeah, he's very authentic, and I think that you have to have a certain confidence about yourself to be in the position he was in, and he has that, and I think we can learn so much from him. And, you know, he also mentioned something that really hits home to me, because the leadership topic of the day is vision. And I'm going to talk about this towards the end of the podcast about, you know, tips for having a vision and what that means in leadership. But, you know, he knows there's a lot more work to be done still, right? And he's the first one to raise his hand to say, I want to be a part of that, you know, and I think that's the key. He hasn't given up. He wants to continue to make his town and surrounding area better. Dave, what are your thoughts?
I have known Kurt for a number of years as well, and I think it boils down to something he said early on that we already talked about, but he decided that he had two options. He could either complain or he could do something, and he chose to do something. And, you know, not everybody's going to run for office, but there's a lot of stuff you can do besides complaining to make things better.
Yeah,
it's true.
And it's funny, Chad, go ahead. Yeah,
I'm just going to say the exact same thing. Dave's exactly right.
Okay.
You know, you could be a lot of naysayers and complain all you want, but why don't you step into the arena?
Yeah, that's where I was going with it, right? It reminded me of the man in the arena, right? We all sit here and we say, politicians, or this and that. And he even talked about it. In Harrisburg or in Washington, the person who's far right or far left is the rarity. Most people are somewhat off center. And he talks about that with confidence. And he talks about that we need to come together as leaders to get things done, right? And anybody that has a rational thought knows that that's the case. So until you're willing to be the man in the arena, I think we need to really take a step back before we criticize
the woman
somebody else
in the arena.
Yeah, or the woman,
or the person,
exactly. I think that's kind of what it reminded me of. So guys, I the leadership topic of the day is vision, right? We always hear about what's your vision, and we have a vision for Shamokin, right? I want to read something to you, and then I want you to kind of tell me your thoughts on it.
Okay.
I stole this from Tony Robbins. It says, creative vision and never let the environment, other people's beliefs, or limits of what has been done in the past shape your decisions, right? And I think that really hits home. So our vision is a better Shamokin. Our vision is a better world. Our vision is inspiring other entrepreneurs to work with us to build an awesome community and raise our families in a place that's thriving instead of continuously being lambasted. What are your thoughts on that?
Do you want me to go, Dave?
Sure.
I would agree. I mean, really. Right? It's easier said than done, but you got to start somewhere.
And it touches just on what you have to have the confidence to know, to believe in your vision and then execute your vision and put all the noise aside. At the end of the day, you know, everybody's not going to agree or like what you're doing, but you just have to keep moving forward and stay true to what you believe.
Especially in Shamokin.
Especially in Shamokin.
Yeah. So I'm going to give us...
You got to stay the course, too.
Yeah, and we're staying the course, baby. I'm going to give us 6 tips from Tony on how to lead with vision. One is self-reflection. You have to be in touch with your inner purpose. Our inner purpose right now is we want to make this place a better freaking place. It's just that simple. And we all bond over that. Kurt wants it. I think everybody listening wants it. That's why we had such an awesome response from last episode, right? We also have to be mindful of others, right? So how do we motivate them? Okay. We have to have a positive outlook, right? If you sit down with that person who they're always having a terrible day, right? Those people drive me nuts. Mm-hmm. And you know a lot of these things. So the best leadership visions are examples that are always optimistic, forward-thinking, and illuminating, i.e. shining a light on Shamokin, right? The goal needs to be clear, and we need to say why. 4 is clarity. What is our goal? Our goal is to not make it the freaking poorest town in the state again and to be thriving. Why? Because it's our community, right? Communication, we have to communicate it effectively. We're doing it at a broad scale. We're doing it on a podcast that anybody can listen to 24/7. Onesie, twosie meetings at the coffee shops are great, but we're reaching a lot of people all at once. And then last, but most importantly to me, is action. So are you going to actually act on what you're saying you're going to do? Meaning if you're not participating, you're not cleaning up what you're supposed to clean up, you're not creating revenue for the city, meaning having a job, paying taxes, creating a business, whatever you need to do, then you're part of the problem. And I'm able to challenge you to fix that, right? To care about your neighbor, to care about your town, to recruit that business, to build other people up. Okay. So those are it, guys. That's my leadership topic of the day to go along with Kurt's vision. Anything else to add?
I don't have anything to add.
So tomorrow I'll see you both at the Stone State Open. Dave, anything else to add?
I was just going to say, if anybody out there has any ideas of how they can help, they can reach out to the Facebook page or comment on YouTube and let us know how you can help.
We're starting a movement, friends. Why not Shamokin? That's what we're doing. Come on board. It's a fun ride.
Thanks, Chad. Can't wait to get started on the next one.
Better than the train.